Okay, sorry.
The
I
more
do
Donald
want to
Trump
check
gets
out
away with,
this.
if he is allowed to pardon people and there's not enough uproar about it and nothing happens, and he's going to arrest people without due process on the streets or detain them, even if they're American citizens.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. Um, I just want to say, like, I want to get to the legal mindset, but uh, this stuff is too feisty, you know? Like, Don Lemon arrested. Damn. Okay, hold on, real quick. We'll cover this.
The more Donald
Sorry.
Trump gets away with, if he is allowed to pardon people and there's not enough uproar about it and
This
nothing
shit
happens,
is
and he's going to arrest people without due
Lemon.
process on the streets or detain them,
6,
even if they're American
2026.
citizens.
Hi, everyone. This is Pivot from New York Magazine and the Vox Media Podcast Network. I'm Kara Swisher.
And I'm Scott Galloway.
Again, Scott, we have to do an emergency
this
episode.
sound.
This is getting kind of ridiculous. We had to jump in here to talk to our audience about what's
Tacos,
happening
the
right
sign of
now with
protest?
journalist and our friend Don Lemon. Right now, he was recently on the show as a guest host while you were away. But he was arrested by authorities in Los Angeles Thursday night where he was covering the Grammy Awards, accused of violating federal law tied to
Who's Don Lemon? Don Lemon is a CNN journalist. Yeah, he's especially infamous, I think. Famous and infamous at the same time. Right-wingers fucking hate him. Also because he's black.
protest he covered as a journalist at a Minnesota church earlier this month. Lemon and 3 other journalists were arrested in connection with this event at the city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Attorney General Pam Bondi said she ordered the arrest of Don and 3 others, citing a connection to a coordinated attack on the church. Don has repeatedly said he was there as a journalist, not a protester, and if you watch what he did there, that's what he was doing, including interviewing the pastor and others. A magistrate judge rejected an earlier attempt by the DOJ to bring charges against Don and other protesters, and the DOJ petitioned a federal appeals court to force the judge to issue an additional warrants, only to be denied, but the DOJ went ahead anyway, even though courts and prosecutors within those offices in Los Angeles and Minnesota are resisting this. Lemon's lawyers call the arrest an attack on the First Amendment, obviously, and says Lemon will fight the case in court. He's supposed to be arraigned today in Los Angeles. Obviously, Don's a friend of ours, a friend of mine. He's been reaching out. Pat, when he was fired from CNN, he and I got to know each other because I helped him sort of mount what he was doing, which was independent journalism, and I've been very proud of him. What he's been doing, he's doing a lot of street journalism, taking his microphone to people, asking them questions. He's built a big following on YouTube. I think he crossed 1 million subscribers recently.
Nicki Minaj really hates him? Why?
But what he's doing is really
Nicki
amazing.
Minaj?
He's doing these things, and what he does, he's a man
What
on the
the-
street, actually. And so he went into this church
Ain't
while
nobody
this
asking
event
for
was
her
taking
opinion.
place,
Damn.
and was doing reporting, and which a lot of reporters should do. You know, I think he's found a new life in doing it as an independent.
Drake no, Drake yes, okay? Nicki Minaj. Lady Gaga, okay?
Journalist, and it's pretty amazing, all the stuff he's been doing. Very varied, and talking to all kinds of people, not just the liberals and the conservatives. He goes in places other journalists don't go, and I think it's a real value what he's doing. And so he was doing this here. He was the Grammys. I mean, it's very varied where he goes. He was in New Orleans for New Year's and stuff. And so what he was doing here was journalism. And because he's had a target on him by the Trump administration, who never liked him when he was at CNN, and so this is what they're doing. And what they were getting is a lot of pressure from church groups for this group going into a church. And you can debate whether they should have gone in that church, but a journalist certainly could follow a group of people in there. He did not coordinate the attacks. They're going to try to allege he did, that he was part of.
From people who talk to me in the chat, all right, listen, okay? Apparently the thing was because the pastor himself was like an ICE agent, and he was preaching love when he has a side hustle as an ICE agent, all right? Cringe.
It. But it's really, again, part of this, what I said in today's episode that just aired, was they're going to keep escalating because they're desperate and they're losing a public case. Okay. And so part of their handbook here, the fascist handbook, is to attack journalists. It's happened in Turkey. It's happened in all manner of authoritarian countries. And this is what you do. And so doing these high-profile cases, even though judges and lawyers do not want to do this and say it's full of shit, which it is really frightening. And it's meant to frighten. And what we have to do is push back. We have to fight it. But the fact is, they will keep doing this, and they will not back out. They will not de-escalate. This is part of the problem. Is you all think you can work with these people, and you cannot. Any thoughts you have? It makes me nervous. I have a lot of people who have been threatening to me, and it makes every journalist who's doing any kind of speaking out really at risk, I would say.
Yeah, I think it's important to distinguish that this wasn't 50 people refusing to leave an area and they get arrested one by one for trespassing.
That's what I said.
This was our Attorney General, the federal government, specifically targeting specific journalists and essentially deciding to criminalize journalism, which at the end of the day converts politics into policing. And also, this really should be a cause for alarm. Well, it's the first step in state capture of truth. They arrest journalists. That's kind of the first step towards mass repression. And it's not usually just journalists. They go after loud critics, polarizing figures, people that the public, quite frankly, are already...
Okay, normally, like, you have to kind of explain to people when someone is trying to do, like, a fascist kind of move, But I think arresting journalists is like one of these things that people hear about all the fucking time when it comes to like moves that a regime takes in order to take over like everything, right? Going after journalists is a classic step, very classic step. And yeah, well, we all saw that this was coming, so yeah, good luck.
On. So Don Lemon is a controversial figure. A lot of people don't like him and will celebrate this. But once you normalize criminalizing journalism from whatever political spectrum, the enforcement widens really fast. And just some historical context, this happened in Turkey in 2013. The initial arrests were seen as quote unquote law enforcement. And within 5 years, Turkey became the world's largest jailer of journalists. Russia in the 2000s, early cases targeted quote unquote controversial reporters. And the result now is that Russia now ranks in the bottom 10% globally for press freedom. The other, I always go to the money here. When a society starts doing this, it almost always predates economic collapse, whether it's Egypt, whether it's Hungary. This isn't a good move for the economy because what happens here is it's not the censorship itself, but it creates an environment of self-censorship where people start spiking stories, et cetera. And this isn't, also this line, the last thing I'll say, this line tends to be a difficult line to cross back easily. Once you start normalizing, they did it in the Weimar Republic, they did it in Hong Kong. Once you start normalizing the arrests of journalists and controversial figures, it's a fast hill down and a slow hill back.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, one of the things that's really disturbing is it's not just this arrest, which is the explicit version of it, is what we're talking about is the capture by these tech billionaires of these institutions that are sort of soft peddling. Now, there's one thing for Fox News. We know they feel like a state propaganda arm most of the time. Not always, but most of the time. You know, I talked to a lot of people.
They just are, right? They lost a fucking $1 billion lawsuit, like $4 billion, I think, for the fucking Dominion voting machines, okay? They are a state propaganda arm, and let's not forget, like, let's not pretend that they're not, okay? Because they are, okay? State propaganda arm, absolutely, right?
They call Fox News entertainment, but it's actually propaganda, and everyone kind of expects it. In this case, there's this sort of this slow burn, whether it's Jeff Bezos, deep sixing the Kamala Harris endorsement, or making changes or gutting out the Washington Post. Whether you have Larry Ellison through Oracle owning a big chunk of TikTok, and also changing CBS News into this both-siderism kind of situation. It's that too, the sort of soft grab of press power, which happens in these places, and then this very hard grab, which is to arrest journalists. And you're right, they're picking someone who they've had a beef with for a long time, who it's in a church, so it creates that kind of like, how dare he go in a church? But this is where journalists go, everybody. Okay? I'm sorry. This should be litigated through the courts with the protesters, whether they trespassed or not, whether they were on private property. But Don Lemon's a journalist, and he followed them in there. And frankly, more journalists should have followed him in there. The fact that he was one of the few, there was just a few of them there. And so when you're covering these protests, often journalists get caught up they don't get caught up in the protests, but they're there when there's
my ninja. What are you apologizing for?
And they're often pushed to the ground. They're often abused. Years ago, there was a protest at a neo-Nazi rally in Germany, and I got hit with all kinds of things, and it's such a melee kind of stuff. But Don was, if you go and watch it, he was interviewing people, including people at the church. And while they may have been offended by the fact that he was there interviewing them, he's allowed to do that. That's a sign of a good journalist, I think. Let me just say, the First Amendment says government shall make no law. This is the government acting. Again, it's really frightening. And of course, Pam Bondi, the Justice Department, has been an arm of Donald Trump, not the independent body it's long previously had been in terms of relationships with president. She is a lackey. All these people are lackeys to this authoritarian experiment. And let me stress, Donald Trump's poll numbers are tanking astonishingly. Everyone is worse and worse among all kinds of groups of people. And so what they have to do is this. And therefore, next week in Ohio, they're going to.
Well, they have to seize power as fast as possible, right? Like that, they have no choice. Because if you don't have the popular support of the people, then you're not going to win the next election, and you're going to lose power really fucking fast, okay? Like, what they have to do is that they essentially have to, like, try, I guess, to do it ASAP. Okay, they have to get it ASAP. Okay, there you go.
They're going to make a spectacle of Haitian immigrants there.
I can totally
try to get rid of them
words.
because they lose their ability to stay there. Then they're going to be doing that. They're going to send ICE in with mass goons all over the place. They go to Georgia and do the election thing. This is all of one piece. And attacking journalists is part of it. And they will double down and double down and double down until the midterms. And if they can stop those midterms, they most certainly will. I don't believe they can, but they will do everything in their power to create a situation where they'll be able to pull the Insurrection Act or whatever they want to do so that they can suppress. And The only good thing that you have here is everybody is speaking out against this. And secondly, that this is a big country. It's a little harder to control this country. And as you can see from what's happened in Minneapolis, that is the kind of reaction that you're going to get. Those protests were largely peaceful. People standing up, average citizens. They can't keep pretending everybody's a paid agitator. It's
you don't have a profile picture.
It shows weakness, but it also shows brutality and a kind of strength that should be frightening to all Americans. I'm not going to get on high of journalists and First Amendment, but hello, it's the First Amendment. We have a right to all the amendments, all the Bill of Rights, and slowly the Trump administration is trying to take away your constitutional rights, and definitely just did that to Don Lemon today.
I don't have a background in journalism. You immediately texted this morning. You're obviously very rattled and upset by this, and I understand. But as someone who's watching the whole thing but doesn't, I don't have a lot of familiarity with the First Amendment or a background in journalism. But what I do perceive is the following, and that is, let's just call this what it is. The Attorney General, appointed by the president, isn't arresting journalists to enforce laws. She's arresting journalists to shape reality. And once the state, the way I see it, once the state decides who may safely speak, politics stops being a debate and it becomes a permission structure. And also, as someone who spent a lot of time thinking and studying World War II and 20th century conflict history,
he's good with
history
words.
around arresting journalists is brutally consistent. Countries that start arresting journalists in targeted ways, they don't become more stable, they don't become more truthful or more democratic. They become quieter, then they become much poorer, and then much angrier. This is a cycle that repeats out consistently. So if you want to be poorer and you want to be angrier, you let the immediate slide of...
Well, you have to keep in mind, these guys are like S-tier journalists, okay? Like, these guys are not like run-the-mill reporters, okay? Like, these two are just very, very well-known, definitely very well-known journalists, okay? Like, both of them. So it makes sense that they're eloquent as fuck. Yeah.
Targeted arrests of journalists turn into a chill and a quiet. If there's not, history shows, if there's not immediate gag reflex pushback,
they're very well respected
that forces
people.
the immediate rethinking and withdrawal of targeted arrests of journalists, history is clear. It slides fast, self-censorship, poor, angrier.
Yep. And let me just say, finally, do not let them both sides this. Don't let them. They're trying to do it with Alex Pettit. They're trying to do it with Renee Good. They're always trying to find excuses for murder. They're trying to find excuses for arresting journalists. There aren't any here. And our heart goes out to Don. Don's a friend. He's been a guest host here. He's very ebullient, and he's really working really hard to try to do something different. And like him or not, and I love him, you really have to be terrified for people, including, and let me point out, the arrest, the taking of the Washington Post reporters' computers and files without a word from Jeff Bezos. I mean, meanwhile, he's swanning around Paris at fashion shows. This is where we are, folks. And so pay attention.
Well, just again, I go to the economic side of it. The fastest growing part of our digital economy is a creator economy. And what does this mean for all creators? That you have some sort of Orwellian environment where you can, only certain people can speak about politics, and global issues, whether it's climate warming or the incel movement, or we're talking about free speech.
We need him right now.
There's a wonderful part of the economy developing where people feel like they can express their views.
Where's George Soros' friend?
And as somebody who leaves traditional media and is successful in the creator economy and ends up in jail because of the viewpoint seems to be crosshaired with the current administration, I mean, you can just see how this begins immediately to start to damage the economy. And also, what kind of message does this send to young people that you have the opportunity to speak out and create your own content, only if it's the right type of content? There's a basic tenet of democratic societies, and it's the following, and it's simple, and it's, but it's very straightforward, and that is the following. Pretty much anybody should be able to say pretty much anything about pretty much anyone else. That's it. And we have revered that and we have protected it. And the moment that falls, it is really hard to put Humpty Dumpty back together again.
Absolutely. I mean, I like that you're actually focusing in on the business part of it, because it's important too. It's easy to get, a high dudgeon here, which I have, but you're right. This is an exciting part of the economy. And the fact that they're doing this is just typical. This is we are hungry. We're becoming hungry. We're becoming, this soft descent into hungry. I don't know what else to say. It's so ridiculous. And fiction, I'm looking up just the First Amendment. I'm just going to read it for people, for goodness sake. I'm just going to do it. It's very short, Scott, and it's first, so it's super easy. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press or of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Well, folks, we're aggrieved, and we're going to petition them for that. Anyway, Don, we're thinking of you.
We're going to continue to peaceably assemble.
Yes, and we are. You know why it's first? Because it's best. Anyway, I appreciate it, Scott. Thank you so much. I was super rattled this morning. And my good friend Scott, as usual, has some amazing insights, and it's really important that we keep at this. And if I get arrested, Scott, will you come and get me? Will you come?
I'm proud to say, and this goes for you, I'm people's jail call.
Okay.
I always carry a shit ton of cash, and I'm a night person, so I'll come down anywhere late at night with a bunch of cash and all that. A lot of discretion, no questions asked. I'm your call, Kara.
All right, thanks, Scott.
There you go.
All right, everybody, thank you very much. Again, that's the Emergency Show. Thanks for listening to Pivot. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll be back with a full show on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's bad. What do you want me to say?